Ladies and gentlemen, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody find a seat? Got enough of them here? Classic meeting. All right. A lot of you have been here before. You know my rules. We're going to go through the warrant item by item. I will read them. Article. Someone will make a motion. We'll have a second and then discuss that article. If you have an amendment to an article, you need to present it to me in writing, and we'll proceed with the amendment and then go back to the original. If there's no amendment, or once we deal with the amendment, then the article will go onto the ballot as printed or amended, and we'll proceed on with the next one. So I ask, if you want to speak, please come to the microphone in the center here. If you've spoken once and there's a line, please wait and give everybody else a chance to speak a second time before you step in, but you're more than welcome to come up as many times as you feel you need to address the issues. Please address the issues, address them to me, be respectful. I've never had Merrimack not be respectful, but just a reminder, we're going to be civil, and we'll proceed on with the meeting. I would like to first introduce Shannon and ask her if she would introduce her board, please, and the back table.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Shannon Barnes. I am the chair of the Merrimack School Board this year. And to my left, I have Vice Chair Andy Schneider. To his left, Board Member Cinda Guagliumi. To her left, Dr. Naomi Schoenfeld, Board Member. And to her left, Board Member Brandy Nunez. To my right, I have Superintendent Marge Chaffrey and District Council Kathy Peel. To my rear, so I'm going to have to turn around, excuse me. From far left, we have School District Clerk Pat Heinrich. In the center, we have Dr. Mark McLaughlin, who is our Assistant Superintendent and Superintendent-elect. And to his right, to his left, to the far right for us, is Matt Chevenel, Assistant Superintendent for Business. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to proceed on with Article Number 2. Accepting gifts of real property. Shall the Merrimack School Board be authorized to accept, on behalf of the district without further action by the voters, gifts, legacies, and devices of personal or real property which may become available to the district during the fiscal year? Brandy, I think this is you.
I move that the article be approved as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Naomi, thank you. Brandy, you got the floor.
This article would allow the Merrimack School Board to accept gifts of personal or real property during the year, such as land. This article appears on the ballot every year in order to allow the school board to accept property on behalf of the district. If this article was not approved, all non-cash donations would have to come before the voters. This does not negate public discussion by the school board and would still require a vote of the board.
Anyone else would like to speak to Article Number 2? Seeing none, it will move to the ballot as printed. Article Number 3, Merrimack Teachers Association Agreement. Shall the district approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the school board and the Merrimack Teachers Association, which calls for the following net changes in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year? Year estimated amount 2019-2020, $855,365. 2020 to 21, $883,164, and 21 to 22, $911 and $867. And further raise and appropriate the sum of $855,365 for the current fiscal year. Such sum represents the additional cost attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels. Shannon?
I move we move Article 3 as written.
Thank you. And a second? Thanks, Andy. Shannon, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Merrimack School Board, in collaboration with the Merrimack Teachers Association, have reached an agreement for a 3-year contract for your consideration. Each year of the contract from 2019 to 2022 calls for a 3.25% pay increase. Merrimack has remained behind neighboring districts in all salary categories and currently requires staff to pay more than those neighboring districts for their health insurance as well. For example, teachers pay 15% of the cost of the Access Blue England plan, which is an HMO plan, and 22% of the Blue Choice New Hampshire plan. The School Board and Budget Committee are both in favor of this article as it supports one of the most important assets of the school district, the teachers in our schools. In the negotiations, we really reviewed an analysis of neighboring districts with comparable demographics. So we pulled in to do our analysis of our salary gap: Concord, Salem, Milford, Amherst, Hollis, Wyndham, Bow, Derry, Hollis Brookline, Londonderry, Brookline, Nashua, and of course us in Merrimack. So this did come with great analysis and forethought. And again, when we looked at the contribution of benefits, we were finding that our employees are contributing at a higher rate than other districts in the area. So again, 22% of a PPO plan is the teacher's responsibility in the premium. So with that, we felt that we wanted to stay competitive in the market, keep those valued teachers within our district, and continue to grow them professionally. So we feel that the contract does do that and accomplishes that goal. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak to this Article number 3 regarding the Teachers Association agreement? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Article 4, Merrimack Teachers Association provisional warrant article. Shall the district, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the school board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3 cost items only? Andy? Thank you. Shannon?
Second.
Thank you. Andy?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article gives the school board the option of calling one special meeting to discuss cost items only in the negotiated agreement if not passed by the voters. If we do not have this article on the warrant, we would have to petition the Superior Court to get approval for a special meeting, and the court only grants such special meetings for emergency purposes only.
Anyone else would like to speak to Article 4? Moving right along, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Article 5, School District Emergency Repair Fund. Shall the district raise and appropriate an amount up to $200,000, said sum not to exceed 10% of the unencumbered surplus funds remaining at the end of fiscal year 2018-19, and to transfer that amount to the School District Repair Capital Reserve Fund, previously established for the purpose of providing unanticipated and/or emergency repairs to all school district facilities.
So moved.
Thank you, Cindy. Brandy, that's a second. Thank you. Cindy, you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. This article funds the existing capital reserve account for general and unforeseen and therefore unbudgeted repairs to district facilities and equipment. During previous school years, this fund has been used to replace one section of the high school bleachers in the amount of $98,500 and $225,000 for bat mitigation of Mastricola Upper Elementary School, and $110,000 for the upcoming replacement of the electric switchgear that serves Merrimack High School. After the payment for the switchgear project, the fund will have only a balance of $45,000. This article will bring the total available for emergencies to approximately $245,000, which could be used in the event of unforeseen things such as perhaps a boiler failure, non-functioning fire alarm panels, or a catastrophic computer hardware failure at the server level. These are just examples of potential expenditures that do not always coincide with the budget process. Any expenditure from this fund requires a vote of the school board. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to Article 5? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Article 6, paving at the Mastricola Elementary School and James Mastricola Upper Elementary School. Shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $325,076 for the purpose of pavement and drainage reconstruction in the parking lot area off School Street at James Mastricola Elementary School and James Mastricola Upper Elementary School? Naomi?
I move that the article be approved as presented.
Thank you. And Cinder, a second. Thank you. Naomi?
This article appropriates $325,076 to reconstruct the parking lot in front of the entrance to Mastricola Elementary School and James Mastricola Upper Elementary School as it abuts School Street. As you may know, the parking lot in front of MES is cracked and sunken, creating a situation of very poor drainage. The lot itself can pool up to 6 inches of water at times, and the grade of the parking lot needs to be brought up to align with ADA requirements for the entrances to the Smith Gym and MES. The lot next to the JMU's entrance is cracked and needs resurfacing. Both parking lots need to be redesigned to gain more parking spaces. We plan to coordinate our efforts with the Town of Merrimack Department of Public Works to get the best price per ton of asphalt and labor as we have in the past. We have here tonight our engineer on the project, Steve Keach, President of Keach Nordstrom Associates, to present the plan and proposed solution to the drainage issues.
Steve? We're going to drop the...
Well, we're waiting for the projector to warm up. I brought a slide that depicts the proposed construction. Thank you very much. Which I'll go over in modest detail momentarily, but as was read into the record with the Warren article, the area in question is actually right behind us now, the entrance of JMU's and Smith Gym. This is a surface that I looked at the first time with Matt Chevino approximately a decade ago. It's hard to believe, but it's been that long. The condition of the surface out there has gotten to be very poor. A lot of it is founded in very poor drainage. Based on inspection of drainage pipes that are under the lot, those were constructed of corrugated metal pipe probably about 50 years ago, as best as we've been able to determine, and I suspect that their corrugated metal is simply rotted, and it's one of the reasons we're experiencing the ponding that you see out there on days of rain. As was mentioned when the Warren article was read, we need to, in addition to fixing the drainage, and part of fixing the drainage will be ripping up the existing paved surface and replacing it. So we're going to take an opportunity while we're doing that to improve it as well. The entrance to Smith Gym from that parking lot does not come anywhere near to conforming with the American Disabilities Act as far as access to public space. It's not surprising. The construction occurred decades before the ADA was written. So we're going to be taking up the grade and improving that concrete work in front of it as part of the project as well. Continuing, as you enter around the southeast corner of the building here and into the parking lot, somebody who's not familiar with the area may not recognize the fact that the entrance to the elementary school is hidden slightly around the corner of the building. There's no dissimilarity in paving materials. There are a little dissimilarity now. I'm going to go to the drawing here. Part of the work that we propose is to, this is where I'm showing my age. I'm going to put my glasses on to see a screen. In this vicinity here, We're going to be replacing pavement, asphalt pavement that is there today, with concrete pavers to create a color difference and textural difference in the walkway surface. Those will be pavers that can be driven over by emergency response vehicles or vehicles servicing the dumpster area and some of the other utilitarian spaces that are accessed within the building from that area just beyond the entrance to the elementary school. But the idea there is to give it some appeal so that it stands out, it looks inviting, so that people who are traveling there for the first or 100th time realize that, number one, it's the entrance to the school, but it's also an attractive place to draw your attention. Perhaps the most notable improvement that we're doing with working within the same area is increasing the number of parking spaces that are available during the day from approximately 39 to 61 spaces without really changing the area of the lot. Part of this work will also improve circulation pattern around the school. Vehicles will continue to enter, come around, and circulate in a counterclockwise fashion. We were simply able to do that without adding a tremendous amount of incremental pavement, simply by turning the parking interlock 90 degrees. So the overall intent of the project here is started to address a drainage problem. As was indicated when the warrant article was read to you folks tonight, we've had a drainage problem out there for some time. It continues to get worse each year, probably because of the under pavement culvert continues to collapse. That will be repaired, replaced, I guess is the appropriate word, and the lot resurfaced, and part of the resurfacing will correct grading and functionality of the space. In addition to that area, the area that we walked in tonight to this building from the lobby here will also have a similar treatment in the walkway only to bring people from the point of entrance into the building. Again, something to distinguish it in terms of color and texture from ordinary pavement, and beyond the limits of the public street, the pavement between the street and the building will be overlaid with new pavement. We've estimated the cost of this work to be approximately $325,000. The intent is to, if this warrant article passes muster of town meeting on April 9th, to put this out to bid on behalf of the school district shortly thereafter, and to receive bids and have a contractor in place and ready to roll as soon as school is out, most likely right after the 4th of July, so that the work can be completed prior to reoccupancy of the property by the staff and students in the fall. So that's the summary that I have for you. I don't know if there's any questions, I could answer them.
Thank you, Steve. Let's get people back into position, get some lights. We are discussing Article number 6. Are there any further questions or comments on Article number 6? You can't do it from there, Pete. Just come up there. Name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Pete Hinkle, live at 1 Pondview Drive. I just wanted to clarify this. It sounds to me like this is a great expansion of the parking area, not just a repair and maintenance of the area that's already there. Is that correct?
Shannon?
Mr. Hinkle, it's actually not adding any square footage. What it is a redesign and reconfiguration to economize further parking spaces. So we're not expanding. We're taking our existing footprint and just tightening it up using the engineering design to be able to achieve more parking spots. We did that successfully already at Reed's Ferry about 6-7 years ago, and we've also done that at Thornton's Ferry. So it actually was in that design also improves traffic flow.
Well, it sounded to me like, from what Steve said, the plan is to more than double the area?
It's going to double the parking spots, not the area.
Double the parking spots.
Yes.
They're reconfiguring the area
Right.
that's there now to allow for more parking spaces.
So have you doubled the size of the staff and the students that have to park there? Is that why you're having to do this?
Well, the students are elementary students, so they wouldn't be parking. But we have not doubled the size of the staff, but the staff has been parking a lot at the Our Lady of Mercy Church as well. So we do overflow into that area, and then we do find that when parents come in for meetings, you'll find them parking along School Street as well in front of homes, because there's just not enough room for any type of events or overflow parking.
Okay, well,
so it's actually not going to cost us any more money, but it's just taking a design and just designing it much smarter so that we can achieve a more efficient footprint for that area.
All right, well, it sounds like you have a workaround plan for parking, which might alleviate the necessity for this size of an expansion and this size of an expense, which we all have to pay for. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak to Article 6? Seeing none, it will move to the warrant, to the ballot as printed. I'm going to move on to Article 7. This is a petitioned article. Shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $1,200,000 for the design, construction, purchase, installation, and original equipping of a new artificial turf field for Merrimack High School? And furthermore, to authorize the school board and school community support groups to apply for and obtain any donations, gifts, devices, bequests, grants, etc., which may be available for said project, and expend any such donations, gifts, devices, bequests, grants, etc., for the purpose of designing, constructing, purchasing, installing, and equipping the new artificial turf field. Jenny, you need to be at the mic.
Here I am.
And you're going to...
I move that the article be approved as printed.
Thank you. And you have a second? Thank you, Jennifer. All right, go ahead. Jennifer, you have the floor.
Okay. So I'm talking on behalf of, I'm a soccer parent, so I'm talking really from a soccer perspective, but this really involves more than just soccer. Currently, all of Merrimack High School soccer teams play on a very expensive, like $260 an hour expensive, rented field in Bedford, New Hampshire, and of all places, Bedford, because, you know, there are arch rivals. And our home field is in another town. The school does not provide transportation to those home games on game days. This is a safety issue because many parents are not able to provide transportation at 2:15 p.m. due to work responsibilities. As a result, many students are riding with teammates who are sometimes brand new drivers. As a parent of a non-driver, this makes me and many other parents really uncomfortable. But as the parent of a soon-to-be driver, it makes me nervous for the liability that my son might be taking on in driving his teammates to games for a school activity. And I know that I'm not alone in my thoughts. I'm certainly speaking for many others. In addition, both soccer and lacrosse practice at Reed's Ferry, where field conditions are mediocre on a good day and unusable when there is any rain. In addition to we are wasting tons of money renting the turf in another town when we could instead be investing in installing and maintaining our own field so that many others in town could benefit from it. The turf field would be a huge benefit not just for the high school athletics, but because the field conditions do not deteriorate with rain, it could be used for MYA sports like soccer, which I coached U8 soccer this fall, and it got rained out no less than, I'm probably barely exaggerating, 3,000 times, and we couldn't even finish our season. My daughter never even got her trophy because the last few games got rained out repeatedly, and we just couldn't play on it. So those kids would be able to play on a turf field if we had an option like that. Our town currently desperately lacks good field options, and having one turf field in town, just one, would be such a huge benefit to so many sports and other town activities across all different age groups. As a parent group, we are also motivated and committed to helping the school district raise up to $500,000 or more to help defray the cost of this project through grants, donations, sponsorships, and other options. People move to Merrimack in part because of our school district and because of our amazing MYA program, and for good reason. You know, we all live here, we know how great those things are. But our field situation is abysmal in this town. This warrant article allows us to improve our facilities to allow for the safest, most usable facilities for our athletes of all ages in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to Article 7 relative to turf fields? Pete?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm, again, Pete Hinkle, 1 Pondview Drive. It sounds to me like this is a luxury item, and I think it's really preposterous that you're proposing to put another $1.2 million expenditure on the backs of the Merrimack taxpayers. You know, there are people in town here who are retired and we're on a fixed income, and our income doesn't keep going up to keep pace with your spending plans. I'm sorry about that. So this has been going on for years. I've sat quietly and I've watched it go up and up, and to me, this is now enough. I have here a chart that you probably have all received with your tax bill. You get this now every year. Shows how much of the taxes go to the school district, how much go to the town. So the school gets 64% of our local taxes, and they get another 2.9 or 10% rather from the state. So for a total of 73% of the total budget. The town can run itself on 26%, but it takes you 73% to run the school district. This is getting way out of proportion. We can't keep paying this year after year, and our income just does not keep up with it. So here's a very good item that you can delete from your budget. It's not going to harm the quality of education. It really has nothing to do with education. It's just another sort of benefit or a little luxury item that you want to add. And I think you've been adding a lot of these luxury items over the years. I propose this is the time to put an end to that.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to Article 7? Stan?
Stan Heinrich, Merrimack Budget Committee. The Budget Committee had much discussion on this petitioned warrant article. And as much as a lot of us support having a turf field, I, for one, have been working on that with Planning and Building Committee for a number of years. The cost is very expensive. The Budget Committee voted to not recommend this warrant article. And the reason we voted not to recommend the warrant article was that $1.2 million represents 36 cents on the tax rate, which is a heck of a spike. We all agreed driving the kids around in private cars might not be the best thing, and having a field that gets overused is not nice either. But that's a big spike for something that comes with a 15-year warranty, and turf companies also offer leasing to pay for it over a period of years, and we also have the ability to bond this for, say, 5 or 7 years and spread out this cost so that we don't get a tax spike, which is what this does. I realize it postpones it another year, but it does allow to make it more affordable. As far as the donations go, a lot of people make promises to donate. How much of the money that they promise gets brought in? We have to foot the bill for the whole thing, even though we could get donations later on down the road. I think that they need to come back, do it as a bond, check out the fact that you could lease it and pay for it over time. When you go to buy your $60,000 Mercedes, which I think is the low end, there aren't a lot of people that don't go and pay cash for it. They usually finance it to spread out the payments over a period of time. This is an item that's going to last a while. And that's if they had come through with a bond for this thing, I'd be all in favor of it, but I honestly can't support it because of the big impact on 1 year in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Tom, are you heading? Thank you.
Hello, Tom Koenig, Merrimack, 1 Danforth Road. The speaker mentioned that we would save money by having this field, not spending the rental money, I guess, for the Bedford field at $250 an hour. Can you give us an idea how much we would see as a reduction in our budget because we spent $1.2 million for a turf field?
Give us a minute.
Do you want me to address that? Yeah, thank you. Right now we're looking for the GPS field rental for soccer is around $3,000 a year, and you'd probably save perhaps $25,000 in fees, not fees, but in taking care of a regular grass field as opposed to a turf field. There's still a cost associated with taking care of a turf field, but we'd contract that out at around maybe like $15,000 a year. So there is a savings, but it's less than $30,000 a year, I would say.
The total savings would be less than 30, even though you've got maintenance on this field?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so $1.2 million and we'll save $30,000.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to this article? Yes, go ahead, Shannon.
Honestly, the school board did vote in favor of this article. I know that the citizens who petitioned the warrant article are working toward donation commitments. The one thing I would also consider is that in 2010, a fields needs assessment, which was a combination of town and school resources that came up with this report, was presented, so again, 9 years ago. And in that, it talked about the fields that we had access to, the sports that we participate in, the organizations that have those sports, MYA, school district, etc. And at the time, we had an urgent need at that time for fields. Not one element of that fields needs assessment has been addressed since 2010. Things have changed since 2010. So two things that are tangible, and it's just fact. I'm not delivering a commitment one way or another as but I want you to consider what this means. That we have an increased participation by a large margin in the MYA lacrosse program. So lacrosse, soccer, football are all sports that would be able to participate locally, and field hockey as well. I always forget field hockey, and I'm sorry for that, guys. But on top of that, we no longer have access to the fields at Anheuser-Busch. So not only do we have more participation in sports, but we have fewer fields to participate with. So those are just facts. In our last joint meeting, actually our last two joint meetings with the town council, we have requested that there be a revisit of the 2010 fields needs report and have an update, so that way we have better data about what fields we do have access to, what property in town could be developed for fields. This would take care of a number of sports in short order, so that's why it actually does accomplish some of those goals in that report, and obviously the needs have increased since then. So what I would ask is that, as you're considering how you feel about those fields, consider where this town is and what we've done in the last 9 years to address a need that was identified in a probably 75-page report. So thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
For the record, I'm Dick Barry, 12 Kyle Road. Have you looked at the differential between this artificial turf and regular turf, and how much money you would save by just putting in a regular turf field?
Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you. Regular turf would actually not get the same amount of use available to it because of the wear and tear. The maintenance of natural turf does cost more, so we would have fewer games able to be played on, and it would be a higher cost to maintain that field. So again, when the Fields Needs Committee came with a suggestion, it was to do a $2 million bond for 4 fields. And I think if you have a turf field, you can get a lot of those accomplishments done in one project. So that's why I said, I recommend anyone interested do research using that Fields Needs Report of 2010.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else want to speak to this? Seeing none, it will move to the ballot as printed. We're going on to Article 8. Shall the voters of Merrimack School District, in order to raise academic achievement and return to grade reporting equity for formative assessments, require that the following statement be amended to the IKB homework Merrimack School Board policy. At the discretion of the individual teacher, homework assignments will be 1, collected, reviewed, and graded, and 2, the accumulative average of the semester's homework grade will be counted toward the student's total cumulative semester grade. Bill? I'm sorry, Bob.
Good evening. My name is Robert Bevel. I live at 12 Blair Road, and I would propose that this be added as written.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Juanita. Bob, you can speak to this?
Thank you. I brought with me tonight a copy of my daughter's 2018 yearbook. In it is a dedication page to probably one of the most beloved principals in our school district, Mr. Johnson. And he shared some words with our children that ring true to me for all 6 of my children who attend public school. Mr. Johnson's core beliefs are: each kid is important. Each kid has a different learning style and learns at a different rate. Each kid has different interests, and each kid has a voice which should be listened to. I ask that this article be put back for the people for several reasons, and those are enumerated in here. One is to raise academic achievement. Let's don't silence the voices of our children when they are attempting to do their homework. Let's make it count. Let's return to a grade reporting equity that puts our students on par with students in the state and across the country. And let's give the autonomy and control of grading assignments, formative assessments, and summative assessments in class back to the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this article? Stan, are you getting up?
Yep.
Okay.
Stan Heinrich, 8 Edgewood Ave. I just have a question. This is an advisory-only petition. Is that, if this got adopted, this would just be advisory? The school board would be under no obligation to honor it?
Not a decision I could make.
Madam Moderator?
Yes.
Would you like us to refer to our counsel? As far as how the article would actually be enforced, if
That's up to you.
If you wouldn't mind indulging us. So, Kathy Peel, thank you.
Thank you. It's our opinion that this article would be advisory only, that it is the school board that determines policy, and this petitioned article seeks to direct the school board in terms of how it should adopt and what policies it should adopt. The school board can take the results of this vote into consideration, but ultimately it's the school board that would decide whether or not the policy should be changed.
Thank you. Bob, you have further?
If a warrant article is put before the town asking for a change of the bylaws, unless it is described as being advisory and it is the will of the people as part of the deliberative session here and the vote next month, it counts. It is not advisory unless there is language to it. Under the law, the only thing that cannot be changed are zoning laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this article? Yes.
Since I'm here. So I also have 4 children.
Identify yourself again, please.
Jenna Hardy, 59 Peasley Road. I have 4 kids in the school district. They are in kindergarten. What grades are they in? Kindergarten, 6th grade, 7th grade, and high school. 4 kids, 4 different schools in the district. I just want to say that I'm thankful for the school board and for the decisions that you guys have made, for our administration. This homework policy has positively benefited our family in a number of different ways, not the least of which providing flexibility for our kids, my kids. As a teacher, I also know that it was sometimes obvious when parents will use the word assisted with homework. It's a difficult thing to count homework because sometimes you can count homework and you don't know whether it was done by the student or not. And to me, that hurts academic integrity. So to me, I think we leave these decisions to the school board, and I completely disagree with amending this homework policy.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this? Seeing none, it will move to the ballot as printed. We'll move on to Article number 9, the operating budget. Shall the district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $77,854,036. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $77,787,563, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised budget only. Stan, I'm going to ask you, once you make your motion and it's seconded, if you would introduce the Budget Committee, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I move warrant Article 9 for a total of $77,854,036.
Thank you, Chuck.
Before I get into the budget, I would like to personally thank all of the Budget Committee members this year, and those folks who volunteered their time are Kevin Bobbitt, Carl Lee French, Jordan Guglielmi, myself, Amanda Heidberger, David Ilg, Shelley Jacoby, Carol Lang, Chuck Mower, Mackenzie Murphy, Gillian Savage, Brian Stisser, and our school board liaison was Naomi Schoenfeld. Thank you all for doing such a good job this year, and it was a pleasure to work with you. Now to get to the operating budget. The Budget Committee held a variety of meetings regarding the operating budget and held a public hearing on February 14th. We got snowed out from the 12th. In the end, we voted to recommend this budget with a $200,000 addition. And we voted to put in $200,000 extra into the budget for the suggested purpose of raising and demolishing the red building that we bought last year. And the reasons for that were that the building is in deplorable condition and cannot be used under its current form. It has asbestos problems, it has electrical problems. They can't even get the fire alarm to work into code unless they want to spend a minimum of $16,000, plus God knows what else to do other repairs. It is not handicapped accessible. It is in excess of 60 years old, similar to our blue and green buildings. And it's in deplorable condition. And though there is not a super definitive plan of what to do, the main objective and the purpose for buying that property were to put a new superintendent special ed office possibly at that location. And because having the extra land can be reconfigured. There's been a lot of discussion about not demolishing the building and just spending the $23,000 a year to keep the heat in the building and the lights on and the water running. There's been talk about boarding the building up and not paying any money to keep it up. It's an eyesore. It's an embarrassment. And we felt the money was worth it to come down. That building has asbestos in the basement and a number of other things that none of us like. We voted to recommend this budget on a 7-1-1 vote, and we voted to add the $200,000 on a 6-4 vote. And we would appreciate your support on this budget. To tell you a few things about the budget, everybody always talks about the costs of what it takes to get a school district going. This particular year, we have an increase in health insurance. We lucked out. It was about 13.9%. It could have been a lot higher. We had a 17% increase in New Hampshire state retirement that we have to fund ourselves because the state doesn't fund it anymore. And we have a lot of other fixed costs. We do have decreasing debt, and in a few years we will be quote-unquote debt-free. But it takes money to run a school district and to keep the buildings up. If we don't keep the buildings up, they're going to fall in disrepair, like that 60-year-old building that we bought last year did. We would ask for your support of this budget, and if we can answer a question or have Matthew answer a question, we will sure try. Thank you.
Naomi?
So my name is Naomi Schoenfeld. I live at 10 Independence Drive. I have a variety of roles that intermix here, so I want to make clear that I'm speaking as an individual, informed by my roles, both on the school board and as a liaison to the committee itself. Some of this has been laid out before, but I'm going to go through my notes to make sure that I have it in order. I would like to move to reduce the operating budget as proposed in Article 9 by $200,000.
Do you have a second? Andy, thank you. Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay. There's some important background for those who are not familiar with the process to understand in this motion. First, there's the school district budget process itself. The annual budget for the school district is created in stages. The first draft of the budget is created by the district administration. This draft is given to the school board to make whatever changes, additions, or deletions it sees fit. The budget document is then handed off to the school budget committee, which is an elected body that has the power to raise or lower the proposed budget's dollar value, its bottom line, as it were. The budget that emerges from this budget committee is the one that is presented here tonight for deliberation. Every year, as budget season begins, the school board provides specific guidance to district administration that the administration then uses as they draft the initial budget document. One such goal this year was fiscal prudence. Merrimack residents have increasingly voiced that while they absolutely want to provide strong financial support to our schools, they are also uneasy with the patterns of rising costs. And so the budget proposed by the school board was intentionally lower than its original starting point, not by a few dollars, but by a clear amount that respected the combined need to provide strong financial support to our schools, but to be aware that taxpayer resources are not infinite. This was not easy. Difficult decisions were made. Cut list items were prioritized and reprioritized. Central administration, principals, representatives from the various district services, and the board each worked to provide various possible routes to achieve greater savings. Ultimately, savings were achieved primarily by postponing a roofing maintenance project that is needed but has some leeway before it becomes absolutely necessary. The resulting budget was approved by the school board and, as is the next step in the process, went next to the budget committee. The budget committee, as eloquently explained, moved to add $200,000 in new spending. This $200,000 in new spending was unrelated to any of the budget items that had been considered, prioritized, and cut by the board in order to achieve savings. Rather, it took the financial space created by the board's work to lower the budget and used that space for something completely different. Recently, the district purchased the property next to the high school, previously the Brentwood School. This year, planning is underway to identify the best use for that property and to explore the best ways to achieve that use. Recently, the district planning for the redevelopment of this property is not complete. However, the budget committee indicates it would like the red building, the building that sits on that land, torn down immediately without waiting for the planning process to conclude. The budget committee's stated intent of record is that the new $200,000 be used for demolition. My motion to reduce the budget by $200,000 does not change or alter the budget in relation to district services in any way. Its only effect would be to roll back this budget committee action. There are two important points. First, an original goal of the proposed budget, fiscal prudence, has been erased by the committee's actions. The work accomplished by the district administration and personnel to successfully cut the proposed budget was undone. In erasing these savings, new money was added not within the balance of the needs of the district as a whole, but rather with a stated intent of kickstarting a project that has not yet been finalized or approved. In other words, assuming that savings had not been the goal, there were other places where $200,000 could have been well spent within the district before resorting to funding unapproved future building projects. Second, the idea that the district should circumvent the planning process and move immediately to demolition is out of step with common sense. Building and demolition projects within a school district take planning. In addition to the school board, other town bodies, such as the Planning and Building Committee, are important and valued parts of the process and should not be sidestepped. I understand that there are those who feel the process is too slow, or that it needs to be jump-started in some way. We all have times when we wish something could happen faster, or when it would be wonderful to take a shortcut. But it is imprudent to demolish a building before a plan is in place that can tell us how the property should be left post-demolition that will be most appropriate to its new intended use, or we will end up spending even more money to retool the site prior to any construction. Project planning for the red building and the land it sits on is not yet at a point where it requires funding. I want to be clear that I do not feel this is any kind of emergency. The budget currently before us would allow the district to function over the coming year. The Budget Committee deserves deep appreciation, not only for their time and service, but for thinking deeply about the budget, considering creative solutions, and acting in the ways that they hope will support the health of the school district. The $200,000 addition is one part of a large and complex budget that overall the committee considered thoughtfully and prudently. That said, the addition is unnecessary, and it is an empty statement. It eliminates important savings and adds to the tax burden of Merrimack residents in order to make an empty point. Decisions regarding the red building are in the works, but are not yet at a point where they require funding. The Budget Committee expressed the wish to send a strong message to the school board that they want the red building torn down, and the sooner, the better.
Naomi, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. You're pushing time limits here.
Thank you. The message itself is clear and appreciated. There are better ways to communicate that message than artificially inflating the district's budget. Voting in favor of this motion removes the $200,000. Voting against it retains it.
Thank you. Chris?
Chris Christensen, 27 Greatstone Drive. I have two questions. And first, I'd like to say I support what Naomi just said. The first question is, why do we pay for heat and electricity in a building that is unused and has no future plans?
Someone want to?
I could do that.
Matt?
Approximately $25,000 a year.
Okay.
I think
Why was the question?
the question was why.
The question was why.
Oh, why? Because if we don't heat it, the pipes will burst. We have to keep it operational. If you're not going to heat a building, you have to drain everything. And if you drain everything, according to the fire department, you'd have to disconnect the sprinkler system. You'd have to board up all the windows and doors. You'd have to then classify it as an abandoned building. And so that's a lot of effort there. So that's why we're keeping to heat it and maintain it.
Shannon?
Thank you for your question, Chris. I think what Naomi mentioned earlier is that there may be some portions of the building that are still worthy of consideration. Having a vetted plan means that we have those functions still available to us. Things like a small gymnasium that could be used for anything like occupational therapy or physical therapy. And until those concepts are vetted, if we raise a building, we no longer have that available to us. Now we have to take what could have been taken from an existing structure and start it from scratch.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
we are.
Shannon.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Second question was for the Budget Committee. I'm just curious what the vote was to add the $200,000 to the budget.
6-4.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to this article? Mike?
Good evening, Mike Malzone, 80 East Chamberlain Road. My question to the board is, for the $78 million that you're going to spend next year on the district, could you please give me a number of students that we have? Seems like a lot of money, $78 million. I'm curious.
Mike, we're talking about the amendment right now. The 200,000. Sorry. Don't go too far. Anyone else want to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to call a question on the amendment. This is to eliminate or reduce the bottom line on the budget by $200,000. Voting, you've got your cards. If you vote yes, you're voting to reduce the bottom line of the budget by $200,000. If you vote no, you're suggesting you're voting to retain the budget as it is printed in here. All those in favor of reducing the number? Thank you. All those opposed to reducing it and leaving it on the same? Pretty obvious here. Okay, so we are now talking about an amended article, and the number is 77,000. Sorry, wishful thinking. Sorry about that. $77,654,036. Mike, if you want to speak to the budget now, that we have it amended.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure you guys figured out that number real quick for me. Again, it was Mike Malzone, 80 East Chamberlain Road, and I was looking for the total amount of students in the school district.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. The projected enrollment for 2019-2020 is 3,785.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rosemary?
Hi, Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. To Mr. Heinrich's point about the state cutting down its contribution to the state employees' retirement system, it was cut to zero, but the New Hampshire House voted last week to increase their contribution to 15%. So that was House Bill 497. That would take effect in the next fiscal year. Also, there were some other actions we took that may help lower local property taxes by having the state increase. We voted to increase the adequacy grant. We also voted to add kindergarten to the per pupil calculation, so it removes it from the Keno revenues and include them as if they were in 1 to 12, grades 1 to 12. So I just wanted to let you know that if this passes the Senate and is signed by the governor, we will see local relief in our budget because the current local property tax will be offset by increased state contributions.
Thank you. Bob, did you have your card up?
Thank you again, Robert Bevel, 12 Blair Road. This is more of a question. In reading the article, it says, should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be the amount, which is the same as last year. And then it says, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting. What are the certain adjustments required by previous action? Thank you.
Bob, I think Matt is going to be going through the default budget.
Okay.
So that may answer your question.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, if we vote for one, what is the cost? If we defeat it, what is the cost? And what invokes the special meeting? Thank you.
So I'll give you two quick question to the first one. Since the two budgets are very, very close, you'll see minimal effect on the tax rate regardless of which way you vote, unless one of these other articles passes, which is going to increase the budget. The second question is, if the budget is defeated by vote, then the school district has the option, without going to court, to hold a special meeting to address the budget only. Matt, you want to go through the default budget, please?
Yes. I'm glad you actually brought this up because I've been waiting here patiently because the law changed recently that I have to go through the default budget at the deliberative session. I've done it at the school board meeting. I've done it at the budget committee meeting. And so let me explain what the default budget is all about. Basically, it's last year's budget on the MS-22, which is basically a form that shows what the total gross appropriation is. And that was $76,581,286. If you have a handout and you want to follow along, it's on page 6. I'll just briefly go through this. So you take that number, and what you want to do is you want to take out and remove special warrant articles, such as transfers to or transfers from capital reserve items. You want to take out one-time items that are not likely to reoccur in future budgets. So I'll give you an example of that one. The third item from the bottom of the page, in the budget last year, we had $128,590 to put in a PFOA filtration system in all of our schools, so the drinking water was safe and the PFOA count was 0 in all the areas where the water was consumed by kids. That's a one-time item that we're not going to continue to do. It's not like maintaining a field or doing bleachers or doing roofs or doing a lot of things that we customarily normally do. So that disappeared. It's also items that are of a legal nature, like all the special ed laws that we have to abide by, or contractual obligations, like a transportation contract that a previous board had signed on. So when you take the budget from last year, we had a transfer from capital reserve to capital reserve for $150,000. That's a subtraction. The purchase of the Brentwood building, that was a warrant article, a separate warrant article. It was $275,000. It wasn't a special warrant article, but that's, let's be realistic. That's not likely to reoccur in future budgets. Benefits are all contractual obligations. The Budget Committee chairman talked about, basically, that's the strain on the budget. It's the health insurance increase, the New Hampshire retirement increase, and other increases that we contractually have to provide to everybody. I'll skip down to transportation. There's an increase of 3.5% in our contract for our transportation. For regular ed, special ed, that was $79,000. And then when you voted to put in public kindergarten last year, if you recall, the article was worded such that it was split between salaries and benefits of additional teachers and furniture that was to be bought. That was done on purpose in order to have that furniture number readily identifiable, so then the next year, which is this year, I could take that money out of the bottom line of the budget to get to a proper default number. Contracted salaries, these are the salaries of the support staff positions altogether. But however, in this operating budget, there was a reduction of 3 positions. So there were 3 positions that were reduced in this operating budget. In years past, I could have left those positions in there, but the law changed that said that if you do a reduction of positions in the budget you're doing for the next year, that has to be removed from the default budget. So that's why they were taken out. Then we have our obligations to keep the Brentwood building functional and, to maintain it like we should. We have an obligation to do that. We had a warrant article last year to pave Thornton's Ferry. Those of you who know that area know how well that came out and how needed that was. The PFOA filtration system went away. Food service is a pass-through account. It's funded by user fees. And then special education, which was a minimal increase this year due to out-of-district tuitions that needed to be taken care of. There's one item that I forgot to mention is debt interest, because our debt is going down every year, and the interest payments we pay every year, they reduce also. So I take that and I subtract that from the default budget. So when I started up top and I made all those adjustments, it came out to the figure $77,787,568. And then I have to, I'm not sure, I'm kind of feeling out this law, but I figured I'd do overkill anyway. And there's 36 pages of backup that's associated with that number in the default budget, if you can peruse through that at your leisure. But I just need to go over this piece of paper here so I am in compliant with the new law. So
Thank you, Matt.
all I have.
Anyone else want to talk about the budget as amended? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, again, it's Mike Malzone, 80s Chamberlain Road. And just for the record, that's $21,000 for a kid to go to 5th grade in Merrimack, New Hampshire. It's an awful lot of money. Really is, guys. It's getting pretty tough to live around in this town. Over $21,000 for a child to go to 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade. It's an awful, awful lot of money. I'm all for education. I'm all for helping out the kids, but I think we got to do a little bit better with spending our money in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan?
Jordan Guagliumi, 22 Ministerial Drive. You know, what kills me...
Jordan, you're talking to me.
...is that we had numerous meetings of the Budget Committee. The public was made aware of those dates. At any of those meetings, anyone from our community could come forward and give concrete, specific suggestions about areas within that budget where money could be saved or redirected. And for the record, no one came to those meetings. So I'm upset to see a comment like that about this budget. I think everyone agrees it's a lot of money, but where were you when we had our budget meetings?
Jordan? Talking to me. Thank you. Mike, I've got a gentleman here. I'm going to allow him first dibs since you've been up there.
Kit Cargyle, 9 Kingston Court.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Kit, K-I-T.
Okay.
Cargyle. I look at the budget. I do think that's a sum of money for certain. I look at the facilities that we have in the town. This is the first town I've been in where elementary and JMUs and your grades are actually split up a little bit different than in other towns. So while I see that there may be some additional overhead to kind of manage those different schools and facilities, one of the other things that I could think of is in all these other towns, they're dealing with updated facilities, better buildings, newer buildings. So if we have facilities that aren't adequate enough or large enough to condense our staff or condense how the schools are run in that way, then maybe look at, instead of the current budget we have, is getting new facilities that facilitate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike?
Thanks a lot. Again, Mike Malzone, 80s Chamberlain Road. The public hearings for the school budget committee did you guys have legal?
Mike, I'm going to remind you, just like I did Jordan, you're talking to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. I'm just curious if they had legal notices in the Merrimack Journal, because I know the town council was getting away from putting legal notices in the Merrimack Journal. Maybe if they were out there too, we'd get a little bit more people.
I think we're going to get an answer.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Stan.
Stan Heinrich, Chairman of the Budget Committee. Merrimack Budget Committee follows the New Hampshire RSAs for meeting notices, just like every other body in this state. Our meetings are advertised in a minimum of 2 places, and that also includes on the website for the school district. The public hearing is advertised in the newspapers. That is an ad that we pay for. It goes in the Telegraph, it goes in the Union Leader, and it sometimes ends up in the Merrimack Journal if it's published on the right date. So we follow the law.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Jenna Hardy, 59 Peasley Road. So $21,000 a child to attend 5th grade sounds like a lot of money. But we have several buildings, like Mr. Kyle talked about, in this district that need to be safe. They need to be updated. They need to be modern. But maybe I could get the number. How many teachers do we have in our district? Does anybody know that? Can I ask a question?
Sure. I'll bet they can answer it.
Sure. Could you please repeat? How many teachers do we have in our district?
Teachers is 344.
Okay. Every one of those 344 teachers deserves to make more money, and we wish we could pay them more every day of the week. So $21,000 a kid, let's flip the script on that a little bit. Our buildings need work. Our teachers should be making more money. Our paraprofessionals are amazing. They should probably be making more money. I'm not saying we should go and advocate. I'm just saying teachers are underpaid. $21,000 a kid for all that we do. I'm not going to lie. I think my 6-year-old, my 12-year-old, my 13-year-old, and my 15-year-old are worth every damn dollar.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this article? Seeing none, it will go on to the ballot as amended. So your number on your budget being proposed is $77,654,036. Stan, you want to do the honors?
No,
I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
thank you. If I just need a moment. Thank you, Stan.
I'm going to defer to Shannon. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself.
Thank you. I wanted to take a moment to recognize the retirement of Marge Chaffrey after 18 years as our superintendent and 41 years in the Merrimack School District. I know it's going to go. Sorry. Yeah, I might. So this is Marge's last deliberative session, which makes this evening bittersweet. She'll be embarking on a well-deserved next chapter, and we just want to take a moment to thank you for all you've done and congratulate you.
One more word.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Back in 1978, there was an individual on the school board who was evaluating employees, people who were coming to work in Merrimack. One of the young ladies, and believe me, I don't know why she has an age compared to me, but anyway, she has it. She stood out way far and above anybody else who we interviewed that night. She started as an assistant principal, I believe, and she worked her way up from there. And I'm proud to say I hired you. And good luck.
Good hire, Bob. Stan, I'll entertain your motion now.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. See you next year, folks. Actually, I will see you next week, if you are so moved, at the town deliberative session, which is Wednesday evening right here. And then I'll see you on the 9th at the elections. Good night, folks.